Good morning, Year 4. Welcome to today, Wednesday's English lesson. I'm going to share my screen with you straight away so that you can write the date and we can have a look at the LO for this morning. Okay, so you should be able to see my screen now. And if you could write the date on your paper or in your book, whatever you're using, and you might need to pause me while you do that. Okay, so let's have a look at the learning objective today. So we are following on from yesterday's lesson where you looked at word classes, and we are going to be using or writing expanded noun phrases. And these are excellent for adding detail, descriptive detail into our writing, so into our stories that we're looking at this week. Okay, so the first thing I need you to do then, as usual, is to divide up your page like this. So you need, the date is not Tuesday the 12th of January, but hopefully you've written the correct date. So the word collector for the first part of the lesson, and then draw a line, and then the word collector for the second part of the lesson. I usually call this the thinking side and this the writing side. So you could just pause the video now and divide up your page like that. Fantastic, well done. Okay, so let's have a look at our narrative map. Now, for those of you in Panthers, you'll be very familiar with these. I think Jaggy was used them as well. So this is our narrative map, and it shows where in the story we are. So yesterday we looked at plot point 1, or the day before we looked at plot point 1, which is where the boys entered the cave, the dark, gloomy cave, and they went all the way down the narrow, windy tunnel into the dragon's lair. And they find thousands of hibernating dragons there. Now, the purpose of their trip is because they want to catch a dragon so they can pass the initiation and be part of the hooligan tribe. Down here, this is often on the wall in the classroom, we use these crosses to show where in the story, if it's a high or a low of the character. So we've got our cross around about 4 on the negative side of the narrative map. So we were using negative vocabulary yesterday. When they entered the cave, it was gloomy, it was eerie, it wasn't very pleasant. So we knew that we were using negative adjectives and negative vocabulary to describe what we could see all around the cave and what was going on in the story. Now, often we will have a series of negatives and then we might have a positive. This is very useful to use so that we can collect either negative or positive vocabulary for our plot point. Okay, so we've looked at plot point 1 and we're moving on to plot point 2. Now, if you remember where we left the boys was they were hoping that the dragons didn't wake up. If you look at plot point 2 now, it might give you a clue. It's a dragon. So have a little think. What do you think might happen and what might we be writing about in plot point 2? Just have a little think. Okay, so you're probably thinking that one of the dragons wakes up, and you would be right. So one of our dragon wakes up and we have a dragon encounter. So that's what we are looking at today. We're looking at our dragon waking up and how that might make us feel or what might happen next. Okay. So this is an exciting and quite scary part of the story, which we want our readers to feel. We want them to experience the emotion that you would be feeling, because remember, we're writing in the first person, so you are pretending to be part of that tribe now. So we want the reader to feel what we are feeling when we encounter the dragon. Now, often we can draw on our own experiences when we're writing stories, but in this instance, we don't have, or I don't have, any experience of being face to face with a ferocious dragon. So we will use different sources now to word collect, to get all of our vocabulary together. Now, we're going to use two different sources. The first one is a photograph, or an illustration, should I say, because dragons aren't real, are they? An illustration of a dragon, so a picture, a pictorial source. And then the next source we're going to look at is a video clip from the film How to Train Your Dragon. So on your word collector one part of your page, have a look at this picture, and we're going to have a look at the questions around it to help us. So we're going to try and describe the dragon, because we want the reader to picture in their minds what this horrible beast that we're standing in front of looks like, what it sounds like, and perhaps even what it feels like, or what you think it might feel like if you were to touch him. So for our word collector list, we want to look at some of these questions to give us some vocabulary. So up here we've got, do the wings make a sound? So imagine the dragon was flapping his wings. What kind of sound would that make? So all of these words that come to your head, pop into your word collector list. How does it move? Does it soar through the sky? Or does it just stand up and turn its head around? How do its wings move? Well, I've already used the word flapping. They might flap up and down. You might think of some different words. What are his eyes like? Now, it's difficult to see his eyes. They could be yellow, they could be red, they could look quite evil. Write all these words into your word collector list. What are his scales like? How would you imagine they felt if you were to touch those scales? And that's here our feeling, our touching lens. What do you think it could feel like? Does it feel scaly? Does it feel smooth? What about his claws? What do his claws look like? They look sharp to me. Sharp is a word you can magpie and put into your word collector list. What about his tail? Well, his tail's long and curly. All of these words you can use in your word collecting bank. How does his tail move? Does it swish? And how big is the dragon? Now, we're looking at quite a scary and exciting part of the story. So we don't want him to be tiny. We probably want him to be fairly big and fairly threatening. I suppose he could be tiny if you wanted to make him especially ferocious. The way he looks, he could be small with a very, very, very strong bite. That's up to you. You can use your imagination as much as you want. This picture here is just if you need some help to describe the dragon. Okay, so we've looked at the picture source, and now we're going to have a look at the video. Right, so while we are watching the video, we want you to make a note of how the dragon in the film, How to Train Your Dragon, looks. He's not the same dragon as this one. He is a different dragon. What is his skin like? What are his teeth like? What do his eyes look like? And have a listen for the sounds that the dragon makes when he's moving, or what sound he makes from his mouth. How he moves. So, is he fast, slow? Does he creep? Have all of these things in your mind when you are watching the video clip. And what I want you to do is just jot down any words that come to your mind just to do with the dragon. Okay, so just the dragon for now. Okay, I'm going to now play you the video clip. Okay, so that was a bit of a longer video clip than what we would normally watch, but I was hoping that it would give you enough close-ups of the dragon so that you were able to collect as many words as possible. Okay, so we'll go back to the PowerPoint now. So you should now have a fairly extensive list, a big list of words that you collected when looking at the dragon. So I'm going to share my word collector list now with you. So you can magpie as many of these as you wish. Hopefully you would have got some ones of your own as well. So the dragon was screeching, roaring, he hissed and growled, he grunted. When he was moving slowly, I could hear rustling. And he almost had a bit like a cat's purr in some places when he was happy or content or when he wasn't feeling threatened. When he was moving, his wings were flapping. He often span around, didn't he, in circles or circled things. He span around a few times. Soaring, diving, he sort of was diving after he was flying to land. He crept along and he hovered a bit. And looking at his skin, I noticed he had scales, he had bumps. Some of his skin was rough, some of it was smooth. The tops of his wings looked fairly smooth to me. His teeth, he had sharp, jagged and pointy teeth, and he was huge. He was a lot bigger than Hiccup in comparison. So you could use words like enormous, colossal. Hopefully you found some other words as well. He was ferocious. I think if he had felt threatened by Hiccup, when he was feeling threatened by Hiccup, he was quite ferocious and vicious and aggressive looking. And he looked to be fairly strong. So there are lots and lots of words here that you can magpie and add to your word collector list. Now, here we've got things like wings, eyes, tail, teeth, arms, legs, body, claws, and scales. These are the things we were looking at to describe. And these here are our nouns. Okay, so thinking about the learning objective, and you may pause the video now if you want to just write some more of these words down. Thinking about our learning objective to write expanded noun phrases, what will really help you here is to draw on yesterday's lesson and to think about the word classes. So we've got nouns, adjectives, verbs, and adverbs. So what I want you to do is to sort your word collector words into one of these categories. Now, just to recap what these categories are, I will share this screen with you, which was taken from the Oak Academy. So this is from yesterday's lesson. So hopefully, if you did yesterday's lesson, you would have a fairly good understanding of what these are. And it wasn't too long ago, so you should remember. So we can use these to spot nouns. So a noun is a person, place, or thing, which is what PPT stands for. So the dragon would be a noun. His wings would be a noun. His head would be a noun. It's a thing. It's a part of his body. Okay? An adjective is a describing word. So it describes, and they go really closely together, adjectives and nouns. So adjectives often describe a noun, and they're fantastic for giving us extra detail. So to build that picture in the reader's mind, we use lots of adjectives all the time. For instance, the dragon is a little bit boring, but when you add in an adjective like the ferocious dragon, we know that he is not a friendly dragon. It gives us more information. And down here we've got our verbs. A verb is a doing or a being word. So if you do it or you are it, then the word is a verb. So the dragon flew, so he flying, flew is the action, so therefore it is the verb. And adverbs go alongside verbs. You can see verb is in the word adverb, so it often describes the verbs. They're really good at describing the verb. So the dragon flew slowly, slowly being the adverb. Now they often, easy to spot because not always, but often they do end in ly. So using your word collector list now, have a go, and you might want an adult to help you here, or you might be able to do it on your own. Sort your word collector words into the correct word class box if you've drawn boxes, or just you could just write the title and underline it, and then have a go at sorting your words into the correct places. So I've got wings, sharp, flapping, and rapidly. Its wings were flapping rapidly. This will help you choose words to build up your expanded noun phrases. So pause the video now and just have a go at sorting these words into the correct boxes. Okay, hopefully you've had enough time to do that, and hopefully you wouldn't have found that too tricky. Let's go back to our lesson. So you will see now why we have done this, that is useful for you to have done this activity. Because if you look now at this screen, this gives some examples of expanded noun phrases. So there are some things to help you here. So there are lots of examples of expanded noun phrases. It's not just one way of putting a sentence together. There are a few. So the first one tells you that you can use a determiner, so the is the determiner there, and then an adjective, and a noun, which would give you an expanded noun phrase. This is the most common type of expanded noun phrase, and we have looked at these a lot in class. So you've got the long, sharp clause, adjective, noun. Because you've now got your words in boxes, you can just use this to help you put together your expanded noun phrases quickly and easily. So the next type of expanded noun phrase is an adjectival phrase. So you've got his wings were huge and leathery. Two adjectives again, which makes an adjectival phrase. So you've got your determiner, his, and the, noun, the wings, and then were huge and leathery. The roar, which was thunderously loud. If you had a comma there and another comma at the end and you continue the sentence, you'll know that you have a relative clause because it's a relative pronoun. Okay, next we've got our determiner, adjective, noun, and adjectival phrase. You can see these get more difficult as they go along, but because you have sorted your words into word class boxes, you should be able to have a go at these fairly easily. So these are quite long, and they shouldn't be used all the time because you would have a lot of adjectives in one place, and sometimes it can be too much. So you'd use these maybe once in a paragraph or in a few paragraphs, maybe once. So his round evil eyes were sharply aware. His large gaping mouth had pointed teeth. So you've got an adjective to describe that noun and an adjective to describe that noun. And then you've got the bottom one, which is an expansion of more than one noun. So you've got quite a lot of adjectives in here. Evil, round eyes were surrounded by glistening smooth scales. Okay, so these are my examples, and you can magpie the format of any of these to write your own. So your first task then today, and these will all join together to make a paragraph tomorrow. So task 1 and task 2 will all join together to make a paragraph. So using the words that you've collected from the picture and the video clip, your job is to write an expanded noun phrase for each of these. So you want one expanded noun phrase for how the dragon looks. So you could describe his eyes, his tail, his wings, or anything you want. How the dragon sounds. So this could be a noise he makes, or the noise as he flapped his wings, or when he was creeping along the floor. That's up to you. And finally, the movements he makes. So he may slowly spin his head. Or remember when he was going round and round in circles, you could describe that movement. Or you could describe the movement when he was flying. So that is your first task. There are lots of things to help you, examples, you've got your word classes, and you've got your vocabulary word collecting list. Okay, so pause the video now while you complete task 1. Welcome back. So I hope you had some great writings. You did some great writing there. I'm sure you did, and send it to us. You can use the Panthers and Jaguars email to send anything you're particularly proud of or anything you really enjoyed doing. Okay, now we're going to move on. You will use those expanded noun phrases that you've written tomorrow when we put our paragraph together. So you're now going to watch another video clip, and this is before the one you just watched, but it doesn't matter because the film is slightly different to the book, and we are writing our plot points based on which order they happen in the book. So the next video clip that you'll watch shows the moment from the film that Hiccup first encounters the dragon. So when he first sees the dragon that was eating the fish. Now, while you're watching the video, pay attention to Hiccup, the boy, because in your second word collector bank, you're going to write down words that describe how he might be feeling at this moment. So when he first encounters the dragon, how he might be feeling, and what things about his body language, his facial expressions, tell us that he's feeling this way. So, at first, he looks fairly calm in the film. Then, I'm not going to give too much away, but the dragon moves and suddenly you see Hiccup's facial expressions change. So you're going to write down words that describe exactly what you see or how you think he's feeling. So, he might be feeling scared. I don't want you to use the word scared. I want you to up-level that word. Find me a better word for scared. Have a look. So you're looking to see what happens to his body, how he moves, how he reacts. Okay? And also that would come under action. So his movements, why you think he feels a certain way. So if you do think he's scared, what do you see that tells you that? How does he move that tells you he is feeling scared? Okay, I'm going to play the next video. Okay, this video is a bit shorter than the first one. So you should see that fairly soon. We don't want to watch this, do we? Okay, well done. So you should have now, I'm going to find the lesson again. You should have now gathered words into your word collector 2 bank here that tells us what you think Hiccup, or how you think Hiccup was feeling at the time, and what you saw in his body language that tells you this, that gives you that impression. So we have got lots of words here. Now, our feelings words on the left. I'm going to give you a couple of seconds to have a look at some of these words. Then I'm going to move the screen away and I'm going to get you to write some down, pause the video and write down as many as you can think of. Okay, so have a quick look at these. And now pause the video and write down as many of those as you can think of, or you might have, hopefully have your own words. Off you go. Okay, usually in class now, this is where we would chat and jot about the words that we've collected. We would write them down on the board and you would think of new ones as we went along. But unfortunately, you're going to have to make do with my list and any more that you have got. Fabulous. So the feelings side then. How do I think he was feeling? Well, at first he was wary and reluctant, and then very quickly he was alarmed, he was scared, fearful, terrified, petrified, frightened, afraid. All of these words describe the same thing. So they're synonyms of scared, which we don't tend to use in class if we can help it. Now, I've got words on here like frantic. He looked frantic to me. His heart might have been pounding. This is where we can draw on our own experience. So think of a time where you've been particularly scared or particularly frightened. How does your body change? You might have tight fists or clammy. You might have clammy hands. That's one of our words from our whole class reading yesterday. You might feel jumpy. Your heart might be pounding. You might shake. Your heart might race, it might go faster, your stomach might churn, or you might feel sick. You might cover your eyes. You may, and if you looked at Hiccup when he was on the floor, he was cowering. So when the dragon was roaring into his face, he was cowering like that and sort of shrinking his body small because he felt threatened, he felt very scared. Sometimes we come out in a cold sweat. And then at the end, I believe he was feeling quite faint, and then he obviously did faint at the end. I think that was a relief, and all those emotions, all of those feelings hit him quite hard, and then he fainted at the end. Okay, now pause the video now and add some of those to your word collector list. If you have got a fair amount of those, then you don't need to pause the video, but feel free to magpie as many as you like. Right, I'm going to assume that you've paused me and you're back. Now, the shadometer, whatever you want to call it. Sometimes we word collect in class and we think of all these fantastic words, for instance, nervous, hysterical, fearful, petrified, reluctant, wary. But sometimes we find it difficult then to choose the right word for the right moment in the story. So the shadometer helps us to do that. So I'm going to show you how this works, and I want you to think about the words you've got and where they are best placed in your story. So this helps us be really precise with that vocabulary that we've collected. So I'm going to we've got scared in the middle. So we're thinking about synonyms for scared. Now, sometimes we can feel scared when, I don't know, for instance, you are on the top of a tall tower. You might feel fairly scared. You can also feel more or less than scared. So you could feel a degree of scared, but not quite scared, or you could feel absolutely petrified because you may have a fear of heights, for instance. So this is what our shadometer does. It gets us to rank our words in sort of order. So I'm going to put petrified here at the top because petrified means that it is a lot more than scared. It's much more than scared. It's much stronger emotion. Now, at the beginning, and especially when you're thinking about the boys in the cave, when they first come into the cave, before they saw the dragons, they were feeling quite wary. Wary is not quite scared. They're a little bit anxious, they're a little bit nervous, but it's not quite scared. So I'm going to put wary at the bottom of the shadometer. It is a degree of scared, but not quite scared. This is how we make sure our vocabulary is precise. And reluctant. Reluctant is not quite scared either. It's slightly nervous. It might build up to being scared, but it's not quite scared yet. So I'm going to put reluctant down here with wary. So you might want to choose one of these words at the beginning of your paragraph. Hysterical. Now, hysterical is when you panic and your body goes into lots and lots of different states. You might breathe heavily, you might not be able to think straight. So I'm going to put hysterical probably above petrified. I'm going to move petrified down. I think hysterical is quite an extreme version of scared. Hysterical is pretty high up there. So I'm going to put hysterical there and petrified here. Fearful then. Well, fearful just means almost the same as scared. Not petrified. Petrified isn't wanting to move, so we'll just leave it there. So not petrified and a bit more than weary or wary, sorry. So I'm going to put fearful in the middle with scared. Now, nervous would definitely go down the bottom. It'd go alongside reluctant and wary. So you're nervous about something, but it's not quite scared. You might be nervous if you're going to stand up and talk in class, but it's not scary. It might turn into something scary, but it's not quite there. Now, I'm having trouble moving these, but they should be placed roughly around the degree of the precise that we want. So we've got scared in the middle, more than scared is petrified, even more than that is hysterical, less than scared is reluctant, wary, and nervous. So now you can see where you might use these kinds of words. So you're not going to be petrified straight away. Something might happen and then you'll become petrified, okay? So that's a useful tool that hopefully we'll use more in class to help us to rank these synonyms of the same words.